Yo! Video games.
Let's talk Monolith Soft. It's time once again. Let's talk about where they are, where they're going, and more importantly, for the main discussion of this, when can we expect to see the next title from Monolith Soft? Which, it's a good question since we certainly haven't seen anything. We do know that they helped out on Mario Kart World, but when's their next game? And this was kind of brought up recently on the group stream, and it's something I kind of wanted to sort of dive into a little bit, and we can give some like sort of timeline to sort of like maybe give you an example. Now the thing is about trying to use timelines of the past for predictions of the future is a little rough now because it's a new system. It's going to require more time, more manpower. They have been hiring, they've been staffing up. But there's another, the real wrinkle, I think, in the company's announcement or what is maybe holding back, an announcement of a new Monolith Soft title is of course Nintendo. They are 100% owned by Nintendo. The last 2%, I guess, Takahashi and Yasuke Hone and President Sugihara, I think they sold their last remaining shares to Nintendo. So Nintendo has 100% ownership of the company now. And they're very, very odd. Right now, it's just been a very strange time for, I think, the Switch 2 in general. The most successful launch of a system in history. And kind of deservedly so because, they were the Switch 1 garnered a lot of goodwill for Monolith. Well, sorry, for Nintendo. But the real problem really becomes with the real problem becomes with Nintendo's been very coy about how they want to distribute information. And this is almost another discussion in and of itself entirely, but I feel like Nintendo's taking a huge gamble right now with how they want to disseminate or reveal software for the Switch 2. And I'm not sure I even 100% agree with it. I think obviously there's a danger in announcing stuff too early, and then kind of leaving people hanging forever. Prime 4 fans are still feeling the effects of that, although that's kind of a unique case. But I think there's a danger of being too shy about talking about your product, because the problem Nintendo may or may not realize is that the Switch 2 is really expensive, and they're doing everything in their power to like not have to charge more for the system. They raise the price of all of its accessories to avoid tariff increases, and then they've increased the price of the original Switch 1 to avoid raising the price of Switch 2. But the reality is that the Switch 2 is still expensive. Despite the fact that they've not had to raise the price of the core system yet, it's still expensive. It is still a $450 system. It's which you could get a vanilla, PS5 without a disc drive, a digital only PS5 for less than a Switch 2. That's kind of a big deal. Obviously the Switch 2 is a portable device. It's I'm not going to pull the Switch 2 out of its thing, but it's running. But it's not much bigger than this this thing that fits in your hand right here. This is an OLED. But Switch 2 is a little bigger than this, so it's like a little flat thing that sits in your hand and you can take it anywhere. So I get it. Obviously, PS5 is not portable. A vanilla PS5, even without a disc tray, is huge. It's a huge Seto Kaiba cosplaying console. So reality is, though, at the end of the day, that's kind of not the consumer's problem necessarily. It's more just look, man, we just all want to play great games. We just all want to play great games. And the thing is, right now, it is an ask. It is a big ask for people to drop $450 or $500 for a bundle with Mario Kart for the Switch 2 right now. And I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but so when you're gonna when your system has such a huge opt-in, you kind of got to really like hammer home with the games. Like, okay, we know it's a lot of money. However, we're gonna give you games that are so good and so worth it that like you're gonna be okay with it. The problem is that a lot of people, myself included, feel like we kind of bought the Switch 2 as a sort of investment rather than a FOMO. The only part of FOMO for me was like, oh, I better get it now because it's never going to be this cheap again. It's only going to go up, and yes, it will only go up. The Switch 1 is 7 years old, and it went up in price. So it has gone up in price this year because that is the topsy-turvy world we live in. So the Switch 2 is not going to get cheaper. The Switch 1 never got cheaper, and it just got more expensive. So I feel like Nintendo is riding the goodwill and just how good the Switch 1 was, because no matter how you feel about the Switch 1, or how, oh, it's a potato, or how poorly the games ran, or why would you play Switch 1 version of anything, blah, 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 blah. End of the day, the Nintendo Switch 1 was a phenomenal system with a phenomenal library of games, and it hit a core mass market appeal that no system since the PS2 has come close to hitting. So it was an amazing system, and we're kind of buying the Switch 2 now off of that. And again, for me, it's more of an investment for Monolith Soft mostly. So where I feel Nintendo's kind of, what's up, Spider Nose? Kind of screwing up a little bit, or I can't say screw up. I can't say it's a screw up, but I can say it's a gamble. It's a gamble to be so withholden of your information of titles. So we had our info dump media day back in April. And okay, Mario Kart World is our launch game, our singular, unique launch game. The only game at launch that was made for the system first party. There's an indie racing game as well, but the singular brand new physical media game was Mario Kart World. And it's not bad, but it's definitely probably one of the most disappointing games I played this year. Mario Kart World is in no way a genre standard setter in the same way Breath of the Wild was. Maybe that's an unfair expectation to put on Mario Kart World, but even with Mario, even if you love Mario Kart World's gimmick, it's certainly not fully utilizing and the idea of an open world Mario Kart game the same way Breath of the Wild made an open world Zelda game. So that's the thing. And then following that was Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is kind of their big kind of tour de force game, and it's pretty great. It's maybe Odyssey good, and that's pretty good. The thing is, though, is that when Switch 1 was announced in January 2017, you announced it with, here's Breath of the Wild, which you've known for a while is coming, and you had an E3 2016 where people got their hands on it and knew it was amazing. So that's how you launch. And then you had like an expanded port of Mario Kart 8, and then you had ARMS, a crazy new fighting game, and then you had Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and then you had Splatoon 2, a full-on sequel to Splatoon 1, and then you had Mario Odyssey with your Zelda and your Mario Kart and your new fighting game and your crazy XCOM Mario Rabbids game, and then you ended the year with a goddamn Xenoblade 2 from Monolith Soft. So year one of the Switch, even when that was just the games that came out that year. You had a No More Heroes spin-off announced. You had Shin Megami Tensei 5 announced that year. In June, you had Metroid Prime 4 announced that year. They were firing on all cylinders to make sure you knew that the Switch 1 was going to be, they were all in on this thing. They were going to make it happen. So for Switch 2, here is a brand new open world Mario Kart game that is okay, a pretty great 3D Donkey Kong platformer. And then the rest of the year is this weird padded out thing of, here's obvious DLC for Mario Party Jamboree. Here's some Kirby DLC, which only works on Switch 2. Here's some Zelda DLC, like Handwave Zelda. It runs well. It runs good Zelda DLC. And then going into it, your big 2 holiday games are cross-gen. Prime 4 and Pokemon Zaza are cross-gen. You do not need to buy a Switch 2 to play Pokemon or Metroid at this holiday season. What you do have exclusively is Kirby Air Riders. You do have a new Hyrule Warriors game, a third in the series of Hyrule Warriors games, which of course will run much better on Switch 2. I think it's only coming out on Switch 2, but they're not even talking about. They've been so weird that we're in August of 2025, going into the holiday season, where supposedly Kirby Air Riders is happening this year, and supposedly Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is happening this year. Supposedly, but we got an updated trailer with no release date, but we have no other real concrete info. We still don't even have a release date for Metroid Prime 4. And then beyond that, they announced a Splatoon spin-off, not even a sequel, but a spin-off in a Twitter update, and then just kind of left it. And then there's that Drag X Drive game, I guess. It's a very weird Switch 2. We are clearly not in the same vein of, oh wow, we're pretty much going to put everything we can forward into Switch 1. You know, we're going to have this massive open world Zelda. We're going to have an amazing big 3D Mario platformer. We're going to have a big Mario Kart 8 Deluxe version. We're going to have a new XCOM game. We're going to have a full-on Splatoon multiplayer sequel. We're going to have a new fighting game. We're going to have a giant RPG at the end of the year. And Switch 2 is like, well, we'll have a Mario Kart game that's open world, kind of. We'll have a 3D Donkey Kong game and cross-gen stuff for the rest of it. So I guess really the point of this is this long-winded side rant here is that Nintendo doesn't really want to talk about what they have cooking. Like they teased Dusk Bloods at the beginning, went silent on it. You know, it's from Soft, it's a collab game, and I feel like they're not doing enough to really push like this is why you buy a console. Because right now it's like you buy it because you really want Donkey Kong Bonanza and you really want Mario Kart World, or you're like me and you're buying it because you're buying it for future game announcements that haven't even been announced. So there's a frustration there a little bit. So that, and then again, this all ties back to like, so when is Monolith Soft's next game? Because reality is that you had, EPD8, also known as Nintendo Tokyo. You had their big game, which was Donkey Kong Bonanza. So that's about probably as graphically intense as Nintendo's probably ever going to get outside of Zelda for pushing their system. So when we see when we talk about games that are going to push the system forward graphically, Animal Crossing's not going to be that game. Pokemon will never be that game. Metroid Prime 4 is a cross-gen game. It looks nice, but it looks nice for a Switch 1 game. So the question then becomes like, so when are you going to start really kind of pushing the pedal to the metal, like pressing the gas on like, okay, this is why you really want a Switch 2? Because right now it kind of feels like, well, it's got Mario Kart, and it's going to have other Nintendo games. They're going to run better on our system. You should just buy it because we're Nintendo, right? So I don't know. I can't say, I don't, for sure when I think it'll be announced. But we can look back at announcements and go, okay, when was stuff announced? When did it come out? So let's look at Monolith Soft's history on the Switch 1. We got we got the announcement of Xenoblade 2 in January 2017, and it came out in December 2017. And that was a year and 1 month, 13 months from the North American release of Xenoblade X. They announced Xenoblade 2, and it released, 11 months later. Xenoblade X initially came out like April 30th, 2015 on the Wii U in Japan, which I got. So it was about 2 years, 2.5, a little more than 2.5 years between Xenoblade X and Xenoblade 2, with Breath of the Wild coming out in March 2015. Or sorry, March 2017, excuse me. So, we go all the way back to Xenoblade X originally, their first HD game. It took them 2 years, 8 months to release their next game, with 60% of their staff working on Zelda in the middle of that. And then 9 months after that, in 2018, September 2018, we got Torna, the Golden Country, a 25-hour expansion, a whole new game expansion to Xenoblade 2. And then things were kind of silent. A year goes by, and we get the announcement of Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition in September 2019, and it comes out in May 2020. We get a big update in, I think, April of 2020, or March or April of 2020. So we got a big update. But about 1 year goes by from Torna release to the announcement of Definitive Edition of Xenoblade 1, and then that comes out in May, about 9 months later. Then there's sort of like a sort of hollow, dark period, if you will, because almost 2 years goes by from Xenoblade 1 Definitive to Xenoblade 3 getting announced in February of 2022 and released in July. So there was this really quick turnaround. They could have probably announced Xenoblade 3 way earlier than they did, but they decided to hold off on announcing Xenoblade 3 until February of 2023. Two or three. Sorry, 2022. February 2022 is when they announced Xenoblade 3. They announced it for September, and then in April they're like, oops, sorry, actually July, because we can't get Splatoon's 3 shit together. So there was about a 1 year, 9 month turnaround or wait period from Xenoblade 1 to Definitive to Xenoblade 3's announcement. And then that got bumped up. So that comes out in July of 2022. We get Xenoblade 3. 9 months later, we get Future Redeemed. So April 2023, Future Redeemed comes out. 9 months after Xenoblade 3, just like Torna was 9 months after Xenoblade 2. So, and then we go again. We go another year and almost about a year and 9 months go by. And then they unceremoniously announced Xenoblade X Definitive in October of 2024. While I'm at Disneyland, of course. So, much like how Xenoblade 1 Definitive got announced in September and released in May, Xenoblade X gets announced in October and then it's released in March. So it's another quick turnaround between that to that. So now if we follow the trend here from X Definitive to Xenoblade, 1 Definitive to 3, we would be looking at a year and 9 months from the release of this game. So we're talking like you're looking at a year from December, really, or more, or maybe more generously, a year from September. Late September, they announce their next game, their next Xenoblade game. But it's a quick turnaround. It comes out in like 6 months or something. So maybe they going from their schedule, their current schedule, it'd be September 26th. They announce it. It releases somewhere around April, May 27. That would be the current timeline because this game came out in March 2025. None of you bought it. I saw there was a big ranting thread on one of the big Xeno social media guys who was like really upset that this game apparently still hasn't sold 1 million copies, which that's a little depressing. I was really hoping X Definitive would have at least crossed 1 million, but like it came out like a week before the Switch 2 Direct. People were done with the Switch, man. They were just done with the system, and frankly, Nintendo gave absolutely zero fucks about advertising this game. They didn't care at all. They were like, here's a Twitter drop. We'll put a Twitter twailer up in January. It'll release in March. I don't care. Yeah, as far as we know, yeah, this game probably hasn't even sold 1 million. And I guess that's not really too surprising. I mean, 3's sales were extremely front-loaded. Like, they sold like 1.3 million in its first 3 months, and then they sold another 600,000 after, and then that was it. It just kind of died. But yeah, this game once again, Xenoblade X is the worst selling Xenoblade game again. History has repeated itself, unfortunately, for poor X. X will never get a break. Poor X will never get a break. Unfortunately, but that's just the way it is. Which is funny because there is a rumor that the next game, some leaker, quote unquote, was saying that the next game, the next Monolith Soft game is X2, is a direct sequel to X. And I'm like, yeah, right. And there's almost zero chance that Monolith Soft was planning to immediately follow up X Definitive with X2. No. So, again, if we go by just history, yeah, September 26th would be when they announce their next game, which for me would be a little bit hellish for me to have to wait that long for a next game announcement. I think, and I still do think, that there's still a decent chance Nintendo wants to announce it at their next big Direct, whenever that is. I do not understand Nintendo's marketing right now with the Switch 2. I'm being generous in saying it's a gamble. I personally think it's dumb. I think they're unintentionally sabotaging the goodwill of their system's launch by being so quiet about what's coming for the system, or being like, Mario Party got Jamboree TV, yay! Like, you want people to drop $500,000 on this thing. You want people to drop more than $500,000. Like, Nintendo, let's be realistic. You want people to drop $1,000 on the Switch 2. You want them to buy the system. You want them to buy another $70 to $80 game with it. You want them to buy like a $60 camera to go with it. You want them to buy like a few $90 controllers, maybe even another $100 like Joy-Con 2 bundle. Like, you want people to walk into whatever retailer. You want them to drop $1,000 on this thing. You want them to spend $500 for the system and a few $100 on some extra controllers and another $100 or so on games and cameras. And shut up, Nintendo. You want people to spend $1,000 on this system for what? For what? For Mario Kart World, which is nice but wears out its welcome fast. And Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is great, but it is not the second coming of Christ. I'm sorry to say. It's like, I like the game, but like, Bonanza is not, it's not the best Donkey Kong game. So again, my marketing would be like, you should like be like, you want a system because this, get a load of this, not Pokemon Zazaza, which looks like a GameCube game running at 60 frames, and saying like, this is what you want to spend $1,000 on, right? Right. No, like, show why you want people to spend $500 minimum on this console. Show it. Like, They're the worst used car salesman right now with the Switch 2. That's where my gut is. That's where my heart is on this. It's like, you're not showing people why they should be spending gobs of money on your system. You're not. You're just, get Mario Kart and Donkey Kong. It's cool. Like, does it cost money, Nintendo, to put? I mean, you don't even do directs. You just do these random Twitter drops to announce a Splatoon spin-off or whatever. How much money does that honestly cost you? I don't know. To me, it's a Monolith Soft game is kind of the perfect thing to sit there and wow people. You get people talking, because the best way, I honestly feel like, even if people don't necessarily say buy a Monolith in the next Monolith Soft game, because let's be honest, these games don't sell truckloads, but it brings the conversation in. It brings a positive conversation into your system when you're like, oh my God, did you see that one game? That looks so incredible. Look, wow, that looks so good. That new Zelda looks so great. That looks so amazing. And people were saying that with the Donkey Kong Direct. The Donkey Kong Direct did that. It made people go stand up and take notice and go, wow, did you see that Donkey Kong game? I think that conversation needs to be spread over to the Switch too, because right now it's kind of like, first it was like, are any third-party games coming to this system? And then they had a partner direct, and it's like, Madden's coming, Football Club's coming, yeah, yay, Football Club's coming, whatever. I think just for the system itself, it's good to have something that like gets people talking about it. Gets people like, even if it's not going to be a seller, like just, oh, did you see how good that game looked? It puts people's mind. It puts the mind share of your expensive ass system up there. Like, oh wow, it's got that really cool looking game. Even if people don't even go for it in the end, I think it's just good for the overall health of your system to have some big showpiece title. But yeah, like I can't believe their holiday title is cross-gen. It's kind of like, why Nintendo on God's green earth? I mean, it's good. I mean, I guess it's good for you Pokemon fans who have absolutely no standards and will buy whatever underutilized slop they throw out there. Every time a Pokemon game crashes on you, you deserve it. But it's kind of weird to me that it's like we're kind of doing the Sony model here. Yeah, like put God of War Ragnarok on PS4, put Horizon 2 on PS4 as well. I just put it on both. Put it on both. We'll sell more on both. We don't need. But again, Sony was, I guess maybe they looked at Sony and said, well, they sold 80 million PS5s. Like clearly going cross-gen didn't hurt the PS5 at all. So maybe it's actually kind of a brilliant thing that they're doing cross-gen here, but we'll see. The economy's worse than ever now, and it's only getting worse. So there's going to come a point, I think, very soon where people are going to really start like I don't know, another 500 for a better Switch. That's a different ball game than in 2020 when you're like locked inside all day. So I don't know. It's a gamble. That's why I say it's a gamble. But yeah, if we're going by timetable, we're not seeing Monolith Soft's next game till 2026. And then it'll launch in first half 27. I'm going to choose to remain hopeful that we'll actually get an announcement of a new Monolith Soft game at their next Direct, that they're going to come out swinging. Maybe, if not September, then maybe February of next year. I think maybe September's a bit of a long shot for the next game announcement, but I think I'm going to be on a little hopeful side and be like, you know what? I think February next year, they announce a new Monolith Soft game, and it comes out late 2026. And I'm going to hopeful for that. Because timetable-wise, it would be September 26th and then come out early mid 27. But hey, maybe I don't feel like Monolith Soft was sitting here working their entire staff to the bone on Xenoblade X Definitive. I just don't. I don't think this game was hogging a ton of resources from Monolith Soft these past 3 years, since Xenoblade 3 came out. I guess in the end, that's kind of my prediction here, is that I'm going to go out and say, like, the safest bet, or maybe my hopeful bet is February, we hear about it. We get it late 26. But if they stick to the same schedule, we won't hear about it until September 26 and early 27. So let me know what you think. I leave it to you guys now.